this young man here is the most highly touted heavyweight prospect in British boxing right now, Daniel Dubois. And perhaps for good reason. But are some people going overboard, or are a lot of people going overboard with their claims that Dubois is better than Anthony Joshua, or he's going to be better than Anthony Joshua? And some people even saying that he is the hardest punching heavyweight in the world. Colin Hart, who is a veteran journalist with the Sun newspaper, he came out and said something like Daniel Dubois is the hardest punching British heavyweight of all time, or something like that. Maybe the hardest punching British heavyweight since Bruno. Either one of the two. Are people going overboard a little bit? Now, for all I know, Dubois might go on to prove that he is all of those things. But I'm struggling to see what people are basing all these claims on. In terms of what Dubois has done so far and who he's fought, he hasn't done anything extraordinary, and he hasn't fought anybody with a record of durability to show that he is this incredible puncher. Now, let's just have a look at his past few opponents and look at their records just to illustrate my point. For me, the jury is out with Daniel Dubois. He's doing what he's supposed to do at the moment, but as I've said before, I didn't see him box at a high level in the amateurs, so I can't gauge how good he can actually be against top level fighters. And I certainly haven't seen him box high level professionals so far. But people have seen some of his knockouts and they've said, oh wow, this guy's a tremendous puncher. So let's look at his past few opponents, right? David Howe, for example. David Howe, as you can see from his record, was knocked out in 2 rounds by this guy. I don't know who that guy is, but he knocked out, he knocked David Howe out in 2 rounds. Then David Howe was knocked out by Nathan Gorman in 1 round back in 2016. He was knocked out by Dave Allen in 2 rounds. Then he was knocked out by Dubois in 1 round. So, knocking out David Howe in 1 round is hardly anything remarkable, is it? And just recently, in fact, I think it was just the other day, Gary Cornish knocked out David Howe in 1 round. So nothing extraordinary there in terms of what Dubois did. Is Dave Allen a ferocious puncher? Is Gary Cornish a ferocious puncher? They basically managed to do the exact same thing that Daniel Dubois did in terms of getting Howe out of there early. Right, let's move on to his next opponent, Mauricio Barragan. Now, on paper, 15-1, seems like he had a good record, right? Let's click on Barragan. The guy's from Uruguay. How many heavyweights have you known about from Uruguay? Anyway, his loss before he fought Dubois was to this guy. I'm not going to try and pronounce this name. But if you click on this guy's record, and he's got a decent record on paper, you click on this guy's record. All right, this dude, he's a light heavyweight. Right, he's a light heavyweight who got knocked out last year, in 2016, 2 years ago. He got knocked out by Artur Beterbiev in 1 round. This is the guy, yeah, who knocked out one of Daniel Dubois' opponents. This dude, yeah? Dubois fought this guy last year in 2017, knocked him out in 2. Well, the dude who got sparked out by Artur Beterbiev in 1 round also knocked him out. Knocked him out in 2, just like Dubois did. So is that impressive? Does that prove he's a massive puncher when, he knocked out a guy who normally fights a cruiserweight and a guy who'd been knocked out by a light heavyweight in 1 round before? So that don't prove any serious power. Then he fought AJ Carter. I've spoken to AJ Carter several times. He's a real good guy, real nice guy. But you look at AJ Carter's record, he got knocked out badly by Kenneth Hideki. I remember that knockout. That's on YouTube. That was a real bad knockout. He also got knocked out last year by Kamil Sokolovsky. That was also a very bad knockout. And that was right before he faced Daniel Dubois. So is Kamil Sokolovsky or Kenneth Odeki world-class punchers? They both knocked AJ Carter out early. So the fact that Daniel Dubois was able to do it as well, you know, what does that really mean? And Sokolovsky and Odeki both knocked AJ Carter out pretty much out cold, just like Dubois did. Then we look at Dubois' latest opponent, Dorian Darch. And most of you hardcore boxing fans will know Darch pretty well. He's been a fairly well-known trial horse in British boxing. 12 fights, 1 KO, 6 losses, 4 by KO, 1 draw. And Darch has been stopped before too. Darch was stopped by Ian Lewison several years ago. In 4 rounds, Ian Lewison stopped him. Then, as you can see here, and as most of you know, he was stopped by Anthony Joshua. Then he was stopped by Eddie Chambers, and he was down in that fight in the 3rd round against Eddie Chambers. Chambers stopped him in 3 rounds. And this is several years ago now. He was stopped by Chambers in 2014. Then he fought Daniel Dubois and was stopped in 2 rounds in 2017. So has Dorian Darch got better since he was stopped by Eddie Chambers several years ago? Had he got better by the time he fought Daniel Dubois? Unlikely would be my answer. So what on Daniel Dubois' record that he's done so far would suggest that he's a devastating puncher? What on his record that he's done so far, amateur or pro, would suggest that he's better than Anthony Joshua and that he's going to be the #1 British heavyweight? He's a young guy, we know that, and he's doing what he's supposed to do at the moment. But until he steps up, the jury is completely out for me. It's, as I keep saying, and you're probably sick of me repeating it, it's easier to look at somebody like Anthony Joshua when he turned pro and proclaim that he's going to do big things because he had already done big things as an amateur. Forget about the Olympics if you think the gold medal was gifted to him. Go look at him at the World Games in Azerbaijan. Look at his performances in that tournament against the top amateurs in the world. Just based on that, you could tell he was going to do well as a pro. The fortitude that he showed in that tournament. Dubois hasn't been in them kind of tournaments as a senior, as far as I'm aware. So let's just take a deep breath, take a step back, and not get so caught up in this hysteria and hype about Daniel Dubois. Recently, Nathan Gorman, who is another British heavyweight prospect who is far less highly touted than Dubois, he came out and said that he sparred hundreds of rounds with Daniel Dubois and said that Dubois is not the wrecking machine that people are claiming him to be. He sparred hundreds of rounds with the guy. You know? So, as I say, I'm definitely not dismissing Daniel Dubois at all, so do not misunderstand me. But I'm just saying, if you believe this guy is all that they're hyping him up to be, what is it based on? Like, tell me exactly what it's based on. Is it based on something he did as an amateur, something he's done as a pro? What is it based on? You know, people might be talking about, oh, his form is better than Joshua, the way he's more fluid and this, that, and the other. It might be, but Joshua's been hit on the chin. Joshua's showed heart. Joshua's showed, you know, guile and savvy. Even as an amateur, he showed that. Again, go look at him in the World Games in Azerbaijan. Daniel Dubois, have you ever seen him show those things? And you're going to need to have those things as a professional. There have been plenty of guys who have had fluidity and a good boxing style who didn't make it as a pro. Audley Harrison was a guy who was more fluid than Anthony Joshua. Joshua was way more robotic and stiff than Audley Harrison. You look at Audley Harrison when he fought, I can't remember the guy, the Dutch guy. He fought that guy and knocked him out. He was explosive on the inside. You know, Harrison had flashes of talent, but he didn't have certain elements in terms of the intestinal fortitude that you require to be a top-level professional. Now, I'm certainly not saying that Daniel Dubois is going to be as disappointing in his professional career as Audley Harrison, but I'm just illustrating the point that Just because he looks more fluid than Joshua, that don't mean he's going to be better than Joshua. Audley Harrison obviously wasn't better than Joshua, and Harrison was more fluid, had quicker hands, etc., but was nowhere near as good as Joshua turned out to be. So, yeah, just pump the brakes a little bit on Daniel Dubois would be my advice to people. Let's just wait and see. Yeah. Anyway, drop your comments in the comment section below. Let me know how you feel. It's Hatman, I'm out.